veteran actor Al Pacino, known for his intensity and control, showed a rare moment of vulnerability after hearing a soul-stirring message from Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré. In this emotionally charged moment, Pacino's voice cracked. His hands trembled, and he admitted, "I've never felt this way before." This video captures that raw exchange, the exact message that moved him. His emotional breakdown, and why this unexpected connection has the internet in tears. The studio was packed, cameras rolling, lights bright. Al Pacino, the legendary actor, sat calmly, his usual composed demeanor masking a lifetime of fame and discipline. The crowd expected the usual sharp wit, seasoned wisdom, a few laughs. But when the host announced, "GNN US live from Burkina Faso is President Ibrahim Traoré," a hush fell across the room. The large screen lit up. There was Traoré, his eyes steady, his voice calm yet powerful. "Mr. Pacino," he began, "you may not know me personally, but I know the man you are. Not the star, not the legend, but the human being whose work has reached places you cannot imagine." Pacino blinked slowly, caught off guard. His hands gripped the armrest tighter. The audience leaned in, sensing something unusual. Traoré's tone carried weight. "Tonight, I don't come to speak of politics. I come to honor a soul whose art has given courage to the voiceless." Pacino swallowed hard. For the first time in years, on live television, he felt his chest tighten. Something told him this was no ordinary tribute. The audience sat in absolute stillness as Traoré continued. "When I was a boy," the president said softly, "we had little but once in a small room, lit only by a flickering lamp. I watched one of your films. I did not understand all the English, but I understood your eyes. They told me something that a man must never surrender his dignity, no matter how dark the night." Pacino's lips parted, his breathing shallow. The camera zoomed in. His hands were trembling. Traoré leaned closer to the camera. "Mr. Pacino, you showed me that strength is not cruelty, but courage. You made a boy in Africa believe he could grow into a man who stood for truth." Gasps spread through the audience. Pacino's eyes glistened. He cleared his throat, but his voice cracked as he whispered, I've never felt this way before." Room broke into applause, some wiping away tears. But Traoré wasn't finished. He smiled gently. "And tonight, I give back the courage you once gave me." For a man known worldwide for his control, it was shocking to see Al Pacino struggling to hold back tears. He pressed his hand against his face, shaking his head slowly as if trying to steady himself. "Ibrahim Pacino," finally said, his voice breaking, "I don't know what to say. I've been honored many times, but never like this. Never." The president's reply was quiet, almost like a prayer. "Then say nothing, Mr. Pacino. Just know you are loved across oceans you have never crossed." The studio audience erupted into applause, many crying openly now. The co-hosts exchanged looks, their cards forgotten. Even the crew in the back stood, frozen, overwhelmed. Pacino lowered his hand, his cheeks wet with tears. "You don't know what you've done to me right now." Traoré's smile deepened. "Oh, I do, because once you did the same for me." The lights felt warmer, the silence heavier, and the world watching knew this was just the beginning of a week that would shake hearts everywhere. The studio was still buzzing when Traoré's voice grew softer, more intimate. "Mr. Pacino," he said, "I remember the first time I saw you on screen. I was only a child sitting on a dirt floor with other boys watching through an old projector. You didn't know us, but your character's strength gave us courage to dream of something greater than poverty." Pacino's chest rose and fell heavily. He lowered his head, pressing a hand against his eyes. The camera zoomed in on his trembling shoulders. "You must understand," Traoré continued, "when the world forgets you, even a stranger's courage can keep you alive." Pacino finally looked up, tears glistening. His lips quivered as he whispered, "I never imagined this." The audience was silent, holding back sobs. One of the co-hosts dabbed at her eyes. For the first time in decades, Al Pacino was not the actor, not the legend, but simply a man overwhelmed by truth. The next day, clips of the emotional exchange dominated global headlines. But what the world hadn't seen yet was the message waiting. For Pacino backstage, after the broadcast, an assistant handed him a package sealed with a simple wax stamp from Burkina Faso. Inside was a folded piece of cloth, the traditional faso danfani, woven by Burkina Bay women, and a note written in careful English. To Mr. Pacino, your art was a bridge when we had no road. We watched you not as Americans, but as brothers in struggle. Tonight our president spoke, but behind him stood all of us. Mercy. Pacino's eyes filled again as he held the cloth in his hands. This is more than an honor, he whispered. He looked at the cameras waiting outside and said softly, the world thinks I gave them films, but I see now they gave me life. The story was no longer just about a shout-out. It had become a story of unity across oceans. On the third day of this extraordinary week, Pacino returned to the studio. The hosts teased him gently about being emotional, but he only smiled. Midway through the show, the screen lit up again. President Traoré had returned. This time, his words carried an even heavier weight. Mr. Pacino, Traoré began, our children saw your tears, and they asked me why a strong man would cry. Pacino leaned forward, visibly shaken. I told them, Traoré continued, that true strength is not in never crying, but in caring so deeply that the world feels your heart. And I promised them this. One day you will come to Burkina Faso. You will see the faces you inspired. The audience gasped. Pacino covered his mouth with his hand, stunned. Ibrahim, Traoré smiled gently, the invitation is open, and when you come, you will not be a guest. You will be family. The studio erupted into thunderous applause. Pacino, unable to contain himself, whispered through tears, I've never felt so human. That night, after the broadcast, Al Pacino sat alone in his hotel room. The traditional cloth from Burkina Faso lay folded neatly on the bed. He couldn't sleep. The president's words echoed in his mind. You will not be a guest. You will be family. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was an international call. Hesitant, he answered, and to his shock, President Traoré's voice greeted him. Mr. Pacino, Traoré said warmly, I hope I did not wake you. Pacino chuckled nervously. Wasn't asleep. I wanted you to hear something, Traoré continued. He held his phone closer, and Pacino heard the laughter of children in the background. They're practicing a small song for you, they insisted. Pacino listened as the children sang softly in Malay. Though he couldn't understand the words, the purity of their voices broke him. He covered his face with both hands, tears flowing freely. When the song ended, Traoré said gently, they wanted you to know you already have a home here. For the first time in years, Pacino whispered, I feel whole. The next morning, Pacino arrived at the studio early. A producer handed him an envelope with shaky handwriting. Inside was a letter written by a 12-year-old Burkina Bay boy named Musa. Dear Mr. from Pacino, I never thought I would write to you. My father works in the fields. My mother sells bread. We don't have much, but when we watch your films, we believe. We can be strong, too. President Traoré tells us, you cried. If a great man like you can cry, then maybe I don't have to hide my tears anymore. Thank you. Pacino's hands shook as he read the words. He pressed the letter against his chest, his eyes brimming. When the live broadcast began, Pacino held the letter in his hands. Looking straight into the camera, he said softly, Musa, you're watching. I cried for you, and I'm proud of you. The studio went silent. Not a dry eye could be found. From the co-hosts to the crew behind the cameras. On the fifth day, the producers announced a surprise. President Traoré would appear. In person, the studio filled beyond capacity. Every seat taken, every corner crowded with people desperate to witness history. As Traoré walked onto the stage, the crowd erupted in applause. Pacino rose slowly, his face already wet with tears, and the two men embraced tightly. Traoré turned to the audience. This week has shown us that art and truth know no borders. And I tell you all today, when Mr. Pacino comes to Burkina Faso, it will not be as a visitor. It will be as a brother. Pacino, trembling, took the microphone. Ibrahim, you've given me more than honor. You've given me family, and I promise you I will. The room exploded with cheers and tears. Strangers hugged each other, some wept openly. The world watching online felt the weight of the moment. For Pacino, this wasn't just about film anymore. It was about legacy, healing, and love that crossed oceans. And yet, the most powerful moment of the week was still waiting. The studio lights dimmed as President Traoré and Al Pacino sat side by side for the first time. Viewers across the globe tuned in, waiting for what felt like history unfolding. Pacino's voice trembled as he leaned toward the microphone. Ibrahim, I've lived decades in the spotlight. I've played kings, soldiers, even devils, but I've never felt smaller and never more human than I do sitting next to you. Traoré placed a hand on Pacino's shoulder. It is not smallness, Mr. Pacino. It is greatness, the kind that chooses humility. The crowd grew silent. Then Pacino admitted, voice breaking, I've never felt this way before. The audience gasped, some crying. A man who had spent a lifetime controlling every gesture, every word, was now undone. And it wasn't because of fame or applause, it was because of truth. Hashtags trended worldwide, Pacino and Traoré. People everywhere wrote, I never thought I'd cry watching Al Pacino. But for those in the studio, the tears had only just begun. After a short break, Traoré asked to share one. More story. The audience leaned forward, sensing it would be important. When I was a teenager, Traoré began, my father worked long hours under the hot sun. One evening, we watched one of your films together. He turned to me and said, Son, men like this remind us that we are not invisible. Pacino's eyes widened, his hands trembling again. Traoré paused, his own voice thick with emotion. My father is gone now, but I believe he is watching us today, and he would be proud to know that the man who gave him strength now sits beside his son. The camera caught Pacino closing his eyes, his face streaked with tears. The studio was utterly silent, except for the sound of muffled sobs in the audience. Did through me, you met him. As the applause faded, President Traoré reached under his chair and pulled out a small, hand-carved wooden box. He placed it in front of Pacino. This, Traoré said softly, was made by children in Ouagadougou who asked me to bring it to you. They said, give him something to hold when he forgets how much we love him. Pacino slowly opened the box. Inside was a simple bracelet made of red and green beads, the colors of Burkina Faso's flag. The actor's lips quivered. Backstage, Pacino raised his hand to show the bracelet. I will never take this off, he said, his voice breaking. Never. The crowd erupted into cheers and sobs. Cameras flashed, but Pacino wasn't acting. He was living one of the rawest moments of his life. And though the show was nearing its end, the world knew the most powerful chapter was still to come. By the sixth day, the world could not stop talking about Pacino and Traoré. News channels replayed the moment over and over, while social media overflowed with comments like, this made me cry harder than any movie. As the cameras rolled, he turned to Traoré and whispered so softly the microphone barely caught it. I don't know how to carry all this love. It's overwhelming. Traoré looked into his eyes and answered firmly, you don't carry it, Mr. Pacino, you share it. At that moment, a young girl from Burkina Faso, flown in secretly as part of a surprise, walked on stage holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. She looked up at Pacino with trembling hands. Thank you, she whispered. Pacino knelt, his tears falling onto her flowers as he embraced her. The audience broke into uncontrollable sobs. Even the cameramen wiped their eyes. Pacino looked up, whispering to Traoré, this is too much for one heart. Traoré smiled. Then let it be too much. The world needs it. Later that evening, footage of Pacino hugging the little girl spread like wildfire. Across continents, strangers lit candles, held vigils, and wrote messages of hope. In Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso's capital, thousands gathered in the main square. Large screens replayed Pacino's trembling words. Children sang the same song he had heard over the phone just days earlier. Back in the studio, Pacino sat in silence as Traoré handed him a tablet showing live footage of the gathering. Pacino gasped, covering his mouth. They're watching you right now, Traoré said softly. Pacino's hands shook as he raised the bracelet on his wrist. You and I love you. And yet, the most powerful moment was still waiting for the world to witness. On the seventh day, the studio could barely contain the crowd. Week has shown us that even the strongest can cry, and even the farthest can feel close. Today, I want to ask Mr. Pacino one question. A question from my people. Pacino, visibly trembling, nodded. Ask me. Traoré leaned closer. Will you come to Burkina Faso? The crowd gasped, holding their breath. Pacino closed his eyes, his lips trembling. Then he stood, raising the bracelet high. "Yes," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Yes, I will come." The room exploded. People cried, clapped, and shouted in joy. Some knelt in prayer. Others hugged strangers. Pacino wept openly, his face buried in his hands. "Then let the world feel it with you." It was the moment the internet would call the tears heard around the world. Al Pacino walked in wearing the same bracelet the Birkenade children had. Given him, he hadn't taken it off once. President Traoré stood waiting. "Mr. For Pacino," he said gently, "the world now knows your tears, but today they must know your promise." Pacino's voice cracked as he spoke. "Ibrahim, I've spent my life pretending to be other men. I will come to Burkina Faso." The audience erupted, some sobbing, some clapping uncontrollably. The camera zoomed in as Pacino's hands trembled while wiping his face. Traoré leaned close. "Our people are already preparing to welcome you. You will not walk among strangers, but among family." The actor's lips quivered. "I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life." In villages and cities, families gathered around old televisions and mobile phones, tears streaming as they watched the Hollywood legend promise to step onto their soil. Children shouted Pacino's name. Women sang songs of welcome. Elders clasped their hands in prayer. Back in the studio, Traoré turned to Pacino. "Do you hear them?" Through a live feed, the sound of thousands of Burkina voices chanting Pacino's name filled the studio. The actor buried his face in his hands, shaking. "It is not about deserving, it is about sharing. You gave us hope without knowing. Now we give you love without limit." Pacino looked at the camera through tear-filled eyes. "Then I will come not as an actor, but as a brother." The audience roared with emotion around the world. People cried, sending messages of love. The internet didn't just explode, it wept together. The last moments of the broadcast felt like a holy silence. Pacino and Traoré stood together holding hands as the co-hosts wiped away their own tears. Pacino raised his voice, though it shook. "I've spent decades chasing awards, applause, and roles. Truth, love, and family I never knew I had." The camera zoomed close as his tears fell freely. "I'm coming, and when I do, I'll walk with you, cry with you, and laugh with you. From this moment, you are in my heart forever." Traoré embraced him tightly. This was no longer just a moment on television. It was a bond that crossed oceans and history itself. And as the credits rolled, the internet agreed. It was one of the most emotional live broadcasts in modern memory. Now, dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, if it made you feel, cry, or believe in love and unity again, don't just watch silently. Subscribe to this channel, give this video a like, and share your feelings in the comments below. Tell us what moment made you cry the most. Your comments and support keep stories like this alive.